He would take his victims into a cave, he would tie them to a chair, cut them hundreds of times with a razor blade, then leave them for the rats to eat. Hello true crime fans and welcome to Behind the Yellow Tape. Today we're delving into the chilling and brutal story of Richard Kuklinski, a man whose quiet suburban life belied a terrifying reality. For decades, Kuklinski operated as a contract killer for the American Mafia, earning the chilling moniker the Iceman. Kuklinski's history of violence began early. Rooted in an abusive, impoverished childhood in Jersey City, New Jersey, the terror he experienced at home, particularly from his father, seemed to warp his moral compass. By his teens, he was already engaging in petty crime and serious violence. His first confirmed murder occurred when he was just 18, a random act of savagery where he brutally beat a man to death. This was a dark prelude to the decades of terror that followed. By the mid-1970s, Kuklinski had found his way into the orbit of the Gambino crime family, specifically under the wing of mobster Ray DeMeo. Kuklinski was a perfect fit for the role of an enforcer and executioner. He was physically imposing, ruthless and terrifyingly efficient. His reputation grew rapidly in the underworld. The reason he earned the nickname the Iceman speaks directly to his method of covering his tracks. Kuklinski began experimenting with freezing his victims' bodies after death. The idea was simple but ingenious. By deep freezing a corpse, investigators would have a much harder time determining the exact time of death, throwing off their timelines and making prosecution immensely more difficult. Kuklinski's life was a bizarre contradiction. On one hand, he was a loving father and husband living in a nice middle-class home in New Jersey. His neighbours and family had no idea of the monster he'd become when he left the house. He often told people he was a currency trader, a believable lie that explained his frequent absences and substantial income. On the other hand, he was committing horrific acts of violence, taking an estimated 100 to 250 lives over his criminal career. One of his preferred methods of murder was to take his victims to a cave, tie them to a chair, cut them hundreds of times with a razor blade, and leave them for the rats to eat. Kuklinski was finally brought down, and thanks to an elaborate multi-agency investigation led by the New Jersey State Police. The breakthrough came when an undercover agent posing as a hitman slowly gained Kuklinski's trust. The agent was able to record Kuklinski discussing his methods and plotting a new murder, providing the hard evidence the police needed. In 1986, Richard Kuklinski was arrested. The subsequent trials, which took place over several years, were sensational. He was ultimately convicted for 5 murders and sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences, ensuring he would never see freedom again. The details that emerged during the trials were horrifying. He used everything from cyanide poisoning to firearms, ice picks and simple strangulation. His total disregard for human life was laid bare for the world to see. Richard Kuklinski died in prison in 2006 at the age of 70. His life is a stark, brutal reminder of how darkness can lurk beneath the most mundane of exteriors. The chilling legacy of the Iceman continues to serve as a deeply disturbing chapter in the history of true crime. Thank you for listening today, and remember, stay behind the yellow tape.